Our success should depend not on accident of birth, but the strength of our work ethic and the scope of our dreams. That's what drew our forebears here. That's how the daughter of a factory worker is CEO of America's largest automaker. How the son of a barkeep is Speaker of the House. How the son of a single mom can be president of the greatest nation on earth. Opportunity is who we are.
Well, we are back with Laura Schwartz and Dan Kaufman, of course, Rogie and Ryan, and we got a smile out of Boehner and a thumbs up and a standing no. I mean, does he get a little credit for that?
I was wondering if he was going to tear up or not. You know, he's known
that
for
might
crying.
be going too far, Laura.
Aside from addressing the soldier, that was the most powerful part of his speech. I think the most captivating part of his speech, and that's where the president becomes most relatable. You know, when he can speak on those terms, and that's how he won over the American people. It's now being able to deliver on that. But I think that I mean, you listen to that part, you can't help but root for him on that speech. You know,
about the American dream.
Yeah, you root for these inspirational stories, and the ones he described and the other anecdotes that were shared of people that were in the audience were great stories. And he's right that America is supposed to be about opportunity, but then, you know, not to be the bearer of bad news, but I think people understand the reality they're living. You see a disconnect between that rhetoric and those stories and the lives that millions and millions and millions of Americans are living, like the 15% who live below the poverty line.
Well, this is a comment from Sharon. She just wrote in. She says, hey, no one on earth can pay bills with $7.25 an hour. I was working at a sandwich chain restaurant for $7.25 when I started, and then I left with only making $8.50. You work your butt off, and this wage thing is a huge problem. So,
yeah, no question. We know that. Yeah.
Well, but work is really the issue, and I know that, and the word cloud that we had earlier, that was one of the big words in it. Work really becomes the centerpiece of this. What do you want to do for the American dream? What do you put into the American dream? And I know that the president talked about individuals doing this, yes, because the government can only do so much. I mean, the government can be aspirational, but once you get into a certain experience with the government, it becomes very bureaucratic, right? And then they get in the way. So if you're a business owner, your experience with the government is very different than if you're a worker who's fighting for a higher minimum wage.
What do you say to somebody like Sharon, who just wrote in, who says that
well, I don't know what the rest of Sharon's experience is. I mean, I don't know how old she is. I don't know when she started doing that.
Making $8.50 an hour.
Well, it does, but if you're 18 making $8.50, but if you're 18 making $8.50 an hour, it doesn't suck as much as if you're 30 and you got kids at home.
But the problem is a lot of primary breadwinners of the home are still making minimum wage, and that's where the issue lies.
Yeah, and I think it's really a good wording even to say, as we heard a little bit of last night, instead of always referring to it as the minimum wage, a fair wage. Right. But when you look at, you talked about, you know, the jobs and alluded to creating jobs there, Ro, because when you look at the priorities on people's minds, minimum wage actually falls to like 5 or 6, whereas job creation is #1. And I think there's a lot to be done by loosening up some tax code issues with corporate America so that they have the ability to create more jobs with the money that they're saving instead of giving it to the government, and therefore creating more jobs. And then we can talk about having more money in there to put in a fair wage.
And raising the minimum wage, and people that are for raising the minimum wage, we know that that's a short-term solution. That's not a long-term solution. The long-term solution is really finding a way to go against globalization and what's happening with cheap labor, which really is education, putting more money into education.
And he did talk about that too, but he also talked about equal wages for men and women. Take a listen to this. Yeah.
Women deserve equal pay for equal work. She deserves to have a baby without sacrificing her job. A mother deserves a day off to care for a sick child or a sick parent without running into hardship. And you know what? A father does too. It is time to do away with workplace policies that belong in a Mad Men episode. This year, let's all come together, Congress, the White House, businesses from Wall Street to Main Street, to give every woman the opportunity she deserves, because I believe when women succeed, America succeeds.
Well, let me ask Dan.
Right.
It sounds good. How can you argue against this? You say he doesn't. He wants to do it alone. He said, come together, Congress, the White House, businesses from Wall Street to Main Street.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the reference should have been to Mad Men. It should have been to Breaking Bad, because that's what this presidency feels like. A lot of policies that are Breaking Bad. I'm happy to be unpopular, because the economics of this don't make any sense. Let me.
For women to not make the same amount as men?
Yeah, because it's 77 cents in a dollar.
It's a canard. It's simply not true. If I'm a business owner, and I could pay someone 70 cents an hour or $1 an hour, and I could get the same value, then I would only hire people that I could pay 77 cents an hour. So in other words, I would only hire women if I'm getting the same value. This is fun with numbers and fun with statistics.
I don't know, Dan. I don't know
actually,
if I'm buying that one.
This kind of, to invoke Milton Friedman, Nobel Prize winner in the space of economics, unlike the president. I know he won a Nobel, but it wasn't for economics, as we found. That I'm on the side of people who want to pay women equally. I'm on the side of non-discrimination. It's actually the people who talk about minimum wage, who talk about government wage setting by fiat, that are on the side of the discriminators, because they don't want people who discriminate based on gender or sex or sexual orientation to feel the effects, the negative consequences of selecting people based on non-behavioral characteristics, based on non-value-added characteristics in terms of the jobs that they can do. So I want to pay people based on the value that they create for my business, and other people, the rhetoric, the mellifluous rhetoric notwithstanding, want to be paid people based on symbolism.
Well, I think women bring a lot of value to every business. I think you can pay women to the merit of their value just as well as you can pay men. And by the way, if you're going to pay 70 cents versus $1, if we had a fair wage, then everybody would have to pay the same, and then that would help solve part of the issue.
So we should have everybody makes the same. What's the fair wage?
How about the lowest threshold?
What's the number?
A lot of states have done very well.
What's the question now?
09, the minimum wage, 6% living increase, brings us to like $10.50, which the president's suggesting $10.10. So that's the mathematical for that.
And you decide that based on
the standard of living, just like Congress goes up in wages.
I have higher aspirations for people than to make $10 an hour, but I don't want the government telling me or anyone else what they can and cannot make and what they can and cannot pay based on the value that someone is or is not going to provide.
Well, look at Costco. They can make another decision. Costco's paying up to $21 an hour. The president was there this morning.
And I don't have any studies right in front of me, but I know on this show we have talked about it numerous times, how there is a disparity between what men and women. There have been countless and countless studies that just say that men still make more in this day and age than a woman. I mean, what do you say to all those studies?
Well, what does the government do there? The question is, what does the government do there? If the government makes a law that a man and a woman have to be, just based on this one factor, gender, has to be paid the exact same amount of money. So is a first-day CEO getting paid the same as a 20-year CEO? Is it because the woman is the same as a man?
Somebody who's been out.
No, but that's a very legitimate question.
It's somebody who's been out of the workforce. Yeah, somebody who's been out of the workforce and comes back. Should that person be paid, man or woman? Should that person be paid as much as somebody who's been in the workforce?
I'm getting a mad rap in my ear. We got to take a break. We do. This is so good, but we have to take a break. We're going to have more State of the Union coming up right after this. Go to the bathroom, come back. We'll be right back.